we are getting to the pacing and progression. You know what, Allison, why don't you kick us off here?
Okay. I feel this, and this is kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, Andy, about how you're trying to mesh GameCube and Wii U, but I personally was thinking only of the Wii U when I did this ranking because it's so well improved that I kind of feel like the GameCube version is obsolete for most people. So I gave the pacing a 5.
Oh my
Nice.
god.
I knew.
What game are you playing?
I just, you know, it's kind of a middle. So I don't know how to explain this. There's shorter Zelda games, right? Like you got the Legend of Zelda, it's pretty quick, and then you've got
Right.
games as long as Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess, and it just feels like a crawl, and it's just sometimes you're just like, oh, I just don't even want to play this game anymore. But with the way that the Wind Waker is paced, I never feel that. Like the dungeons, um, like how do I explain this? Traversing to each dungeon isn't a chore. Um, and the dungeons themselves aren't very long, and like I feel like they just have the perfect amount of time. There are a couple of lulls, I get that, but I feel like the along with the story aspect in the pacing of it, it just makes up for it in my opinion. So the fact that they improved the sailing with the Swift Sail, the fact that they have improved the Triforce Hunt with, not having to pay for all the pay tingle like a million times, and the fact that there's not a million dungeons, it's not super long, it's not super short. I just feel like it's a good middle of the pack Zelda game as far as pacing goes. So I gave it a really high score.
If I was dead, I'd be rolling in my grave
I
right
don't
now,
know how
Allison.
to explain it. I just feel like it deserves that spot.
So
All right.
if I may kind of piggyback off of that a little bit.
Oh, okay, Corey, you talk some sense into her here.
Actually, I was going to give this a 3, but Al convinced me to bump it up to a 4.
Woo!
Oh, come on!
So
Love
this,
it.
the pacing argument is one that I frequently hear about the Wind Waker, and I'm not quite sure I 100% get it. Because the first few dungeons basically you do Forsaken Fortress, and then you do Dragon Roost, and then you got to go straight to Forbidden Woods or whatever and do that. But then after that point, it kind of branches off, and you get to that section, and the world opens up, and you can do a ton of stuff after you beat the Forbidden Woods, right? So you can, at that point, you can either choose to say, hey, I want to continue progressing in the story, so I'm going to go straight to Great Fish Isle, finish up finish up that first half, and then do Tower of the Gods, and then just keep chugging along through the story, right? But at that point, it also gives you the autonomy to start doing things at your own pace. And that's kind of something that I think is a concept that was definitely brought out more robustly in Breath of the Wild, but it's another sort of beta aspect of that that's in the Wind Waker, where you don't necessarily have to continue pushing forward the story. If you want, you can start going to islands that have, Triforce shards or Triforce charts, and you can start doing some of that stuff a little bit early. And then once you get to the point where you do have to do the Triforce chart quest, the game gives you the autonomy to take it at your own pace entirely. And you can route out which island you want to go to. All right, I'm going to get this chart, and then I'm going to decipher it, and then I'm going to go get that shard, and then maybe I'm going to play some mini games, if you know what I mean. It gives you that choice of how you want to approach the next section of the game. And that's a section of the game that I feel like a lot of people complain about because they're like, oh, it takes too long, it's a slog, it's a lot of sailing. And I think that might just be, I don't want to say poor routing on the player's choice, but it's kind of up to you how you do that section of the game. And to make a comparison, I know you guys are huge Skyward Sword fans, and I'm definitely a big fan as well, but there's a section of that game, I think, where you have to get the hero's song, and you're returning to a bunch of the regions, and you have to do a bunch of stuff in order.
Yes.
That feels a little bit padded and a little bit like you're kind of being pushed along a line, and because it's a line, you can see forward, and you're like, this is taking me a while, and you feel that. But because the Triforce chart quest because you have the autonomy to do it at your own pace and to do it in basically whatever way you want, it doesn't feel that way. Which is
That's
something
fair.
that I think Allison might have been hinting at.
Yeah, that's what I had a hard time trying to say what I wanted to because I was so
Yeah.
flustered that Andy had such a reaction to my 5, but that's exactly right. Like, I get what you're saying about Skyward Sword. It's something you have to do in that moment. There's not a whole lot of side stuff you can do around getting the Song of the Hero, at least that late in the game, in my personal opinion. So it feels like it's long because you're just trying to get to the end, whereas Wind Waker, you have so much more to explore. I mean, if you're a speedrunner, it does feel like it has that line that you're talking about.
That's actually why I would give it a 5, is because I've been practicing the game a little bit, and like there definitely are sections where if you want to go in a straight line, you're kind of just like waiting in the boat, you know.
Yeah, that's
But I mean,
fair.
that's just the nature of the overworld.
Yep. So I agree.
All right. I'm going to take both of you to task, and I'm going to give it a 1.
Oh my god!
I am not letting the original GameCube version off of the hook here like you guys have. We want to talk about... First, let's break this down in a couple different ways. So we want to talk about earlier the freedom to go explore anywhere that you want. You know what? You kind of do have that freedom. But in order to do that, you have to stop. You have to bust out your Wind Waker. You have to play the Song of Wind. You have to change the direction. And you have to hope like hell you don't overshoot it, your destination, or maybe overshoot the treasure chest that you're looking for, because if you do, you gotta bust out the song, you gotta bust out the Wind Waker, you gotta change the direction again, and you gotta go back. So that is frequent in the Wind Waker. Granted, it's fixed in the Wind Waker HD, but I'm not letting that off the hook. That is a killer of the Wind Waker right there. Every time that you want to change directions, bust out the Wind Waker, play a song, change a direction. And there's no escaping that the entire game. You want to you dismiss the Triforce quest, but like, I'm not letting it off the hook. Talk about a absolute momentum killer. Like, you're kind of reaching the crescendo of the game, and instead of building on that, you are forced to then go and explore all around the world and find these shards, which then you have to take to Tingle and pay him an exorbitant amount of rupees, and you probably don't have those rupees, so you got to go and find those rupees, and it's like, it just grinds to an absolute stop. And it's one thing if you can go back and it's a fun little quest, or like it's hidden somewhere, but like, to me, I'm just like, these are just kind of lame rooms. Like, you crawl under a mansion, which you have, to get to that mansion, you have to go and collect joy pendants. Like, that's again, like, just another collectathon, but like, just stuff like that. You have it. They're just, to me, they're uninteresting quests that you have to do, and you have to do, what is it, 8 of them in order to reunite the Triforce. Then you have to get them deciphered. So it's almost like you have to do 16 steps at the end of your game, and it's like, boy, oh boy, this is like, I just want to beat the game here. I'm going to make another comparison actually to Metroid Prime, which I was just talking about. In that game, you do have to collect 12 artifacts, and you know, if you don't have them by the end of the game, you have to go back out and get them. However, Metroid Prime will allow you, for the most part, to pick up those artifacts on your way, as long as you know where they are and how to get them, even though they're kind of hidden in secret. The Wind Waker does not allow you to do this for the most part, because sure, you can go anywhere that you want after the Forest Haven, but you don't have items equipped to get onto half the islands that you're going to need to go to. So like, you can show up there and map them, but you can't really do anything on them. And then the game doesn't tell you if you've got all what you need to do on the island or not. So it's like, later in the game, you're guessing if, well, maybe I should just try here. Maybe I should try there. Maybe I should try this island. And it's like, boy, this is not fun. I think that, like, the Wind Waker HD, yes, addresses a lot of these concerns and fixes, but even so, even the Triforce quest that they have, to me, still feels like the game is grinding to a halt for a little bit, which is like not what I want before I go and fight the final boss. Like, imagine in Ocarina of Time, if you had finished the Spirit Temple, you're just like, okay, this is sweet. I'm gonna go and fight Ganon at his castle, and then they're just like, actually, sorry, you need to find all 100 golden Skulltulas before you can get in here. That is what the Wind Waker pretty much does to you before you go in there. So that's a 1 from me. I could maybe see Like, I could maybe see like a 2 or a 3 if you're a big fan of the Wind Waker, but I don't know. A 5 to me is just like, you might as well be speaking in tongues because I don't understand.
Well, you're saying that you don't want to.
There's my rant. There's my rant about the Wind Waker's pacing and progression.